Welcome back to the shop, and welcome to episode 5 of the Rat Trap rebuild. Today we're going to get the brake caliper put back together for the front, and get the front wheel back on this guy, and then we'll start putting on some parts that came in. We got a new front brake master cylinder, we've got a new clutch lever to install, and we're going to do some more checks, like making sure that oil supply tube on the front is actually supplying oil to the head. Let's get started and see what all we can get done today. Alright, now I skipped over the rebuild of the caliper because it's honestly pretty boring. It's mostly just cleaning everything up. I will say that one thing to note on the rebuild kit, they send you a blob of grease in this container, and it doesn't take much. But what's left in there is after installing the O-rings, greasing the bushing here, greasing the bushing there, installing the pin, everything. And that's still what's left inside of the container. So do not over grease stuff. You don't want a big blob of grease floating around on the inside if you over grease these seals when you put them in. So just a skim. Like if you have enough grease on there that you can see the color of the grease, you probably got too much grease on there. You just want a film to help everything slide together and seal off. And we got the bracket all cleaned up and a little smear of grease on that ready to go. We're going to scooch over to the bike and work on putting the front wheel back on for right now. We're going to start off by sliding the front fender back into place. Tighten up our bridge bolts to their final torque, which is 17 foot-pounds. And our front axle nut has a pretty wide torque range. It's allowed from 36 to 58 foot-pounds. So we're going to go about in the middle, and we'll torque this guy down to 47. Time for the front caliper bracket. And our manual shows 30 foot-pounds on these. We'll go ahead and hang the speedometer cable. This thing is a little worse for wear. After we get on the road and make sure nothing else is seriously wrong with the bike, we'll probably replace that. But for now, she'll work just fine. And now we'll install the front caliper. Nice tight fit into that bushing. Check and make sure we've got some pretty free movement. Oh yeah, that is much better. And we'll tighten this guy down. We'll hook up the brake line after we get the new master cylinder on, and we'll worry about bleeding brakes at that point. Now our speedo cable is routed. We'll go ahead and put on our brake hose bracket. Okay, front end's put together enough for right now. Let's get to working on some controls. Okay, now one epic oversight on my part. I forgot that on this old girl, Honda decided to put the clutch lever on your headlight control. So I'm gonna have to figure out how I want to get around that later. Now we're in business. Okay, we're not in business. And we're back. We had to resort to using the old sleeve because the bore in the new one is not big enough for our cable to go into. And our first problem has arisen, the joys of custom bike stuff. So our original clamshell has the clutch lever and all built onto it, right? It will not clear in any way with our aftermarket clutch lever. So the executive decision has been made to modify. So we'll jump forward to that. And just like that, it all fits together and sings Kumbaya. Nothing to see here. And now for the hopefully less labor intensive side. Swap out this brake master and get one that's not a leaky piece of junk. And we will be bit just slightly on fitment. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. The original brake master had the hose come off of the front side, which was good because it cleared the top of your fork tube here. Our aftermarket comes off the side, so we'll have to put the line on it and then we'll bring it up there to where we're just about as close as we can be, and I think we'll come out about even to the other side of the bike. We'll start assembling that and get it put on here. And as it turns out, after looking at the other side, once we get this thing slid in just about even, we're going to be sitting right there, so we'll actually have a little bit of breathing room. Alright. Once we get our hose routing figured out, we'll figure out the angle of our brake hose, tighten that guy down the rest of the way. And because of the unique situation that is our throttle tube setup, because it doesn't quite clear everything else on this bike, we're going to run our throttle cable up and over the top. We've got plenty of cable length, it's not going to bind or anything. And we've got our cable slack set. Running across here, we've got plenty of room down to our starter button, plenty of room up top for the kill switch. Should work just fine. The caliper rebuild kit came with new copper washers. We have a nice fresh connection here. And here again, we'll lock this down once we have our hose routing figured out. Now the brake hose is routed and snugged up. We're going to start gravity bleeding. Alright, now that we have levers, we're going to pop the valve cover off and verify that we do have oil flow to the head. Although, I'm pretty sure we do at this point. Alright, we do definitely have oil flow, and what I'm looking at here is the end of the camshaft. You'll be able to see oil pump through that if it is supplying oil to the head. Now that we have levers on the bike, we've verified oil pressure to the cams. Front wheel is remounted. Front suspension at least kind of works. Our next thing is going to be to put a key switch back on this bike because she's been operating off of a toggle switch for the last few years. So we're going to tear into this headlight housing where all the wiring harness runs into, and hopefully that plug is still intact so we can just kind of plug and play. We'll see what we find. And it looks like we are in luck, and our flat prong plug is still there. Sweet. Looks like everything is really close with the exception of maybe one thing here. That is the original harness has our ground wires coming into the top corner. This does not. Instead it has the ground wire on a bullet connector, so we will have to do something there. I don't have any terminal connectors at the time, so I'm probably just going to pull these out, put them on a bullet connector, and we'll have it plugged in beside the harness there. Slight change of heart there. I decided instead of a bullet connector, we're going to use the somewhat weatherproof male and female blade connectors. Give it maybe a little bit of a fighting chance on being weather resistant. Alright, it's all plugged up. Now let's see if it works or catches on fire, right? Alright, cool. We have running lights. We do have a headlight. Excellent. We'll check some functions. High and low beam do work. Check turn signals. We do have left turn signal. And we do have right turn signal. Excellent. All the gauges are lit up correctly. And last check would be starter button. And it does work. Awesome. We now have a key instead of a toggle switch. Next step, if you've been around the channel for a little bit, you probably saw the video that I did changing the chain and sprockets on my GSXR. And I made mention of an old worn out chain and how you get a little zigzag pattern on it. If you look at these links, they are far from in line. This chain is royally shot. One of our next projects is going to be working on foot pegs, because this had that really odd shaped foot peg bracket. And I don't have those anymore. And aside from charging through the swamp that is eBay, the other option is to make something, which is what we're going to do. So I'm going to get started on a template for some foot peg brackets, and we're going to make that out of cardboard, and then we'll transfer that over to our steel and flame cut. And this will be a wrap on this episode. We've got some foot peg brackets roughed out. They need a little fine touch and some paint. We got our shifter fit. Just to give you an idea where that thing came from, that peg bracket started off as a cardboard template. And we got a surprise in the mail today. The gas tank has arrived. We're getting one step closer, guys. Thank you guys for watching, and hopefully episode 6 will have this thing firing off and maybe moving under its own power a little bit. That'd be cool. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time on Rat Trap Rebuild.